Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Jason Page. Don't mind me. One hour every day. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. I used to do 3, 4, 5 hours. Now I just want an hour. I'll take that. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. News breaking literally just as we were coming on for the live edition of this show, which, by the way, if you miss any of it, well, if you subscribe to the Decibel 88 channel on YouTube, you can watch the show anytime, but you could also subscribe to the Don't Mind Me podcast, which I am promising we're gonna put an episode up today. We've been kind of tinkering with the Don't Mind Me podcast, courtesy of our friends at Believe. That will begin today. So if you miss any of the video show, you can subscribe to that. Make sure to hit the like button on the YouTube broadcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already done so. It helps. We appreciate it. So, as I said, there was news breaking literally just as we came to air today. Serena Williams is going to play Wimbledon. How do you like them apples? Serena's going to play Wimbledon, and that is certainly something that I think it's going to get a lot of people's attention. And I was debating whether to grab a guest for it on the fly, but I have a lot of other stuff that I want to talk about, and I only get 60 minutes here. So, I guess technically I get as long as I want, but I'm trying to keep it to 60 minutes. So, we'll get into it as we go through the show, though. I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to see what happens when Serena plays Wimbledon as a wild card. But again, I don't want to digress from what I plan to talk about here on the show. So let me we'll get into the Phil Mickelson press conference yesterday, which I think deserves a lot of attention. And we'll do a dissection of everything Phil said in his 25-minute press conference yesterday. 22 minutes, I think, by the time you get to the Q&A part. And you could decide for yourself what you think of Phil Mickelson, who I think has just destroyed his reputation. Can you imagine building a 25-year career and literally obliterating it in 12 months? Because that's what Phil Mickelson's done. We'll get to that. Coaches behaving badly. Some people as leaders of men. A couple of examples I want to talk about on the show today and try and figure out just why some organizations fail, why some football teams in particular fail, why some coaches particularly fail. We'll get into that. But let's start with, I think it's obviously the big story of the day, and that is the Golden State Warriors, who are on the verge of an NBA title. And look, let's give the Warriors all the credit in the world. A lot of people felt they were the underdog in this series. A lot of people felt Golden State was not the better of the two rosters in this NBA final. And here you are now with this Warriors team on the precipice of another championship and winning last night, despite the fact they didn't get anything from Stephen Curry from beyond the three-point line. If there was ever a sign that the Celtics can't beat this team in a 7-game series, last night was it. I mean, Golden State last night was 9 of 40 from beyond the three-point line. You held them to under 47% shooting, and you still couldn't find a way to win if you're Boston. You could not make enough shots. And as much as we like to bang on Golden State, and I don't mean bang in a bad way, but we like to talk about their flaws. They held Boston to 94 points in an NBA final. And by the way, our best bet hit. Little pat on the back for me. I said last night, reluctantly and begrudgingly, take Golden State minus the 4. And Golden State minus the 4 came home. Golden State wins 104-94, despite the fact that Stephen Curry goes 0 of 9 from three-point range. Had just 16 points. Boy, how big has Andrew Wiggins been, though? You've watched the evolution of this guy from his time in Minnesota with the T-Wolves. I don't know how many people thought he would stick long-term with the Warriors. Remember, they brought him in when Stephen Curry was hurt and I believe missed most of the season. But look at what he's done in this series, both on the defensive end and last night on the offensive end. How about 43 minutes for Wiggins? 26 points, 13 rebounds, a block, 2 steals. I mean, he could not have been better. And Golden State is 1 win away. And look, whether they win it in Game 6, maybe Boston could get it back to Golden State for Game 7. Whether they win it in 6 or win it in 7, they're going to win this series. Which was what I thought originally before the series started. And I think what you're finding out about Boston is, and look, I hate to make this so simplistic, and I'm not going to get all geeky and X's and O's and who should be doing what, and is Ime Udoka doing a good job coaching this team, and all of those things. I'm not going to get into any of that. There are certain intangibles, things you cannot see on the floor, or things that fester, that sort of show themselves in situations like this. And the fact of the matter is you have a Boston team that's never been in this position before. And if they get back into this position again, which again is difficult in a very competitive Eastern Conference, they will have been better off for this experience. I know that's not what Boston fans want to hear, but that's the reality. If you're talking about a Boston team that gets back into this position in a year or 2 years with a lot of these guys still in place, they will have been better for having gone through this experience, and they'll have something to draw from. And that's what the Warriors have. They're obviously a talented roster. And I think far too many people counted out or discounted what Golden State has. And look, the series isn't over. I mean, Boston could obviously rally and win Game 6, and then anything can happen in a Game 7. We've seen it a million times. But I think far too many people discounted what this Warriors roster looks like. How about Jordan Poole hitting another buzzer-beating 3 in this game to end the third quarter, and he did it earlier in the series as well. But Boston shot under 42%. And look, this is supposed to be Jason Tatum's time to shine. Had 27 and 10 last night. But he needed that Stephen Curry moment that we saw in Game 4 from Curry. We have yet to get that moment from Jason Tatum in this series. You know, he fashions himself after Kobe Bryant. Well, he needs that moment if he's going to get Boston into a Game 7 in this series. Jaylen Brown struggled mightily. And look, you know, Jason Tatum could do whatever he wants. If you get 5 of 18 shooting from Jaylen Brown, 0 for 5 from three-point range, and just 18 points, 5 turnovers, that's just not enough. And it's kind of interesting to me, too. You know, Boston's got a lot of talent, but for all intents and purposes, they played 7 guys last night. That's asking a lot of Jason Tatum when you've played 100 games this season and how important he is to this team. You know, the Warriors last night, they played 8, but the distribution of minutes, they played Iguodala for 4, Bjelica for 5, but I mean, you want to say they played 8 or 9 guys, whatever you want to say. But the distribution of minutes, especially at this time of the year when guys are just drained and worn out, even with all the time off in between games. Look, at the end of all of this, Golden State's just, Golden State is the more prepared and better team. I think it would have been asking a lot. And before the series started, and we weren't doing this show before the series started, but I remember talking to people. Before the series started, I thought it was going to be Golden State in 6. And that's kind of what it's looking like now. Warriors, to me, just look like the more experienced team. There's no panic. Boston makes a run in the third quarter last night. They take the lead. You never got the sense that Golden State was panicked. But there have been times in this series where you've watched and Boston does look panicked. And Boston does kind of look like they're looking around trying to figure out what's going on. And that's what you get with an inexperienced team as far as NBA Finals experience. So we'll see if the Warriors can close it out. I think they will. Whether it's in 6 or 7, but Golden State's going to win another NBA title. And now you start having the conversation, the dynasty conversation, the greatest team, of a generation conversation, team of the decade, team of the last 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever you want to get into. You start having those conversations now when you talk about a Warriors team that's on the precipice of another NBA title. You got a thought? You got a comment? You can leave it in the chat box on our YouTube channel. You could also hit us up on Twitter at The Back Page. Again, hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page if you want to opine there. Give me your thoughts on this series. Does it end in 6? Does it end in 7? Does Boston have a rally in their bones? We'll get into that. We're going to dissect this Phil Mickelson press conference from Monday. Mickelson had a press conference at the U.S. Open just outside Boston. And a lot of people were talking about what he had to say. He took questions for about 22 minutes. And I think it's just as important. Now, look, for those of you listening on the podcast, you'll get the audio, but you won't see the video. But I think, I'm not one of these body language experts. I remember Bill O'Reilly. Bless his heart, we're looking out for you. Bill O'Reilly used to have these body language experts all the time on his show back in his Fox News days before he decided to incinerate his career. Bill O'Reilly used to have these body language experts, and I wish we had one because I think the body language of Phil Mickelson yesterday, the expressions, his brevity with his answers, saying a lot at times without saying anything at all. I think visually, the visual of Phil Mickelson on Monday at the U.S. Open Media Day portion for him, addressing questions from the media on a whole slew of topics, was very telling. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stick around. Jason Page, we're just getting started. Tuesday edition, don't mind me. Stay with us. we welcome you back. Don't mind me. I'm Jason Page. The podcast, courtesy of our friends at Believe on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like us. 1 hour every day, 11 a.m. Eastern to noon Eastern. I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow because you got the start of the Stanley Cup final, and I plan to have a guest on to talk about that. But now there's this Serena Williams story, and I'd love to get Patrick McEnroe on to talk about it. I don't know what we're going to do. We might have to do 2 guests tomorrow. That might just be the bottom line. Again, like, subscribe, do all those things. The podcast, make sure to subscribe to that as well. The first episode is going up today, I promise. I've been a little lax in putting up the podcasts as we've been working out the technical end of some things. So Phil Mickelson was the story of the day yesterday afternoon when he met with the media at the U.S. Open because everybody wanted to know what Phil was going to say. So I thought it would be constructive to do a breakdown of what Mickelson said in his presser with the media at the U.S. Open yesterday. So here is Phil Mickelson. We will pause throughout this press conference that he did yesterday, and I'll give you some thoughts on what he's saying and what he's not saying and what he's saying and what it actually means, at least in my opinion. Phil Mickelson, in his own words. Phil Mickelson, in his own words. Let's see what he had to say.
Phil, after such a long layoff, how do you prepare for a tournament that you wanted to win for so much of your career, one that's eluded you?
So that's going to be a challenge, right? It's a most difficult test in golf. I think it was important for me to have a little bit of competitive golf last week and identify some of the areas of weakness. It was one of the worst putting tournaments I've had in years, and I spent time yesterday addressing that, which is why I basically putted the whole day on the course. And in the off season, I actually made some strides ball striking wise, and I'm fairly optimistic there. But it'll be a real challenge. I mean, these are the best players in the world, and it's the hardest test of the year.
Now, that's our buddy Jason Sobel, who's now with Action Network. Good longtime friend of mine. And, yeah, I have to say, he kind of teed it up for Mickelson to get comfortable in the Q&A portion of this presser because he asked him a golf question. It wasn't anything having to do with Live Golf, the Saudis, the money. But as you'll see, the questions got much more difficult.
Question on the left.
Hey, Phil, I'm just wondering, in your time away, what did you learn about yourself?
I think there were a number of things that I've certainly learned, but it's given me more than that an opportunity to really prioritize those that I love, those that I care about, and develop a path forward so that I can be more engaged, be more intentional with when I'm with the people I care about, and also have a little bit more balance in my life going forward off the golf course.
So Phil has tried to, put this idea out there that, he's sort of been laying back ever since his comments about the Saudi government and, the Jamal Khashoggi incident and all these different things that he's made comments about. After that, he basically disappeared. The sponsorships went away, and Phil basically decided to take a step back. And what you got from him in this answer is him getting into the idea of trying to spend more time with his family, address some of his shortcomings, and that's a theme he came back to a couple of times in this press conference.
Question on the right.
Phil, Christine Brennan.
Hi there.
Now let me just say, Christine Brennan has been all over CNN going after Phil Mickelson whenever she can. And I give her so much credit because so many people will go on TV and say that thing, but then never say it when they have a chance to actually address the athlete. Christine Brennan did not hold back.
As you know, you've been criticized by many people, as you referred to. New York Post, Brian Wacker, reported that the 9/11 family sent you and others a letter alluding, of course, to Osama bin Laden and the 15 of 19 hijackers that the Saudis, of course, sent, and that they say now you are a partner with them, and you appear to be pleased in your business with them. Terry Strada is the person, of course, who wrote this letter, and her husband got on the plane in Boston that flew into the World Trade Center. And they say the deaths of your fellow Americans.
No, I've read all that. Is there a question in there?
Yes.
Wow. That is a moment. She's literally running off. And granted, some people may want to say she's making a statement more than asking a question. Get to your question. But for him, watch this hand motion he makes. Watch the hand motion that Mickelson makes right here again.
That the Saudis, of course, sent, and that they say now you are a partner with them, and you appear to be pleased in your business with them. Terry Strada is the person, of course, who wrote this letter, and her husband got on the plane in Boston that flew into the World Trade Center. And they say the deaths of your fellow Americans.
No, I've read all that. Is there,
Okay.
I've read all that. Is there a question?
The death of your fellow, and now he's had enough. And he puts his hand up and kind of swipes, gives that gesture. That is so dismissive of what those families have had to go through. He couldn't stand having to hear about it. That he's supporting this Saudi government, MBS, that he's supportive of this by taking this quote-unquote blood money from the Saudis to represent the Live Tour and Live Golf. And the look on his face and that dismissive wave. Get to your question.
Yes, there is. How do you explain to them, not to us, but to them, what you've decided to do?
I would say to the Strada family. I would say to everyone that has lost loved ones, lost friends in 9/11. That I have deep empathy for them. I can't emphasize that enough. I have the deepest of sympathy and empathy for them.
Question on the left.
That's it. What are you going to say? I have sympathy. I have empathy. That's it. And you could tell he's been coached. Some of the time away that he has spent, he's gotten coaching on how to prepare himself for this moment where he's going to have to answer these questions. And again, it's something that comes up throughout this press conference. And if you watch his measured tone, after every question, he takes about 4 or 5 seconds before he answers. Thinking, running it through his head. Okay, what am I supposed to say when they ask me about this? What's the pivot? What's the deflection?
Michael?
Hi, Phil. How did you feel about the PGA of America's decision to move the PGA Championship away from the Trump course in Bedminster to Tulsa in the wake of the January 6th riots? And then how do you feel about these two live events being played on Trump courses?
So let's go back to just one at a time. I don't really know what to say about the PGA and their decision. That's ultimately their decision. I thought that it went really well at Southern Hills. I thought it was a fun tournament to watch. I thought it was exciting. Came down to the end and was exceptional. But I don't get involved in that matter. That's for the PGA of America. And I haven't been involved in Live Golf and their decision on where to hold their events. But those discussions should be held privately behind closed doors.
Question.
Do you have any personal feeling about yourself going to the course with
I care more about the quality of the test of golf, the quality of the golf course, the fan experience, and their ability to see and view the golf, and the challenge of what the venue provides for the players, risk reward, exciting to see, birdie opportunities, tough pars. I care more about that.
Question directly behind me, Ian.
Phil, you mentioned earlier you have strong emotion or respect for people who have strong emotions opposing your decision to join Live Golf. You've obviously been one of the most popular players over the years among fans, but if a segment of your fan base decided to walk away from you and not support you anymore, would you respect and understand that decision? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Okay, you're throwing 3 questions at me, so let's just try to keep it one at a time. But
That was actually just one question.
in regards to if
It's starting to get contentious. Just one question at a time. Just give me one question. I don't want to have to answer multiple questions. It's bad enough I got to sit up here for 23 minutes and take your questions. I don't want to answer 2 or a follow-up. By the way, note for people who want to get into the broadcasting profession. There is a reason that when you're taught about interviewing and asking questions, why you don't ask a double question. Because if you ask a double question, you're giving the guest or the interviewee the opportunity to pick which one they want to answer. That's why you got to figure out a way to ask questions with just one question.
fans would leave or whatnot, I respect and I understand their opinions, and I understand that they have strong feelings and strong emotions regarding this choice, and I certainly respect them. I respect that.
What Mickelson is saying is, be damned the reaction of the fans. Be damned my legacy. I've made my decision. This does not sound, I will say this, this does not sound like a man who's having any regrets over his decision to join Live Golf. Not a single one. He does not sound like somebody who's backing down. I think this is something he's very comfortable with. And that's almost as alarming as the original decision to join Live Golf in the first place.
Question on the left.
Hi, Phil. I appreciate it's still early in the week, but what sort of welcome back have you had, or what sort of welcome back are you anticipating you'll have from your peers who will feel betrayed by you and have lost an awful lot of respect for you?
I have, with Amy and myself, there have been a lot of memories that we shared, experiences that we shared. And many of the players on PGA Tour are people that I look up to and respect the most. I think that I respect if they disagree. But at this time, this is the right decision.
And just as a follow-on to that, I think a Boston crowd can be pretty vociferous at times. You were once adored by the American public. A lot of them are now feeling pretty angry towards you. If you do get booed and heckled this week, will that hurt?
I think the Boston crowds are some of the best in sports, and I think that they have given me a lot of support, and I'm very appreciative of that over the years. And I think that their excitement and energy is what creates such a great atmosphere. So whether it's positive or negative towards me directly, I think it's going to provide an incredible atmosphere to hold this championship. I think it's going to be a great event, and the people here have a lot to do with that.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you want something to watch throughout this, at least the first 2 days of this event on Thursday and Friday, watch how the fans treat Mickelson. He's expecting, it's good, he's saying all the right things, I will say that. But Boston fans can be tough. Go ask the Warriors. Go ask opposing players at Fenway Park. Boston fans can be tough. And if he starts struggling or gets off to a slow start, you're going to start to hear those little cat calls from the gallery. You know, when he goes to hit a drive, hey, Live Golf! Hey, you took the money! I have a feeling there will be more than one or two fans that say something, and Mickelson's not going to be happy about what he hears.
Hi, Phil. Ann Liguori here. I'm curious, what does legacy mean to you? And do you think your legacy will change now that you're associated with Live Golf?
There's the double question again, and watch Mickelson's reaction.
So I'm going to try to just, I don't like it when you keep asking multiple questions,
Oh,
but
terrible.
as far as legacy, and I'll just address that, I would say that I've been a part of the PGA Tour now for 30 plus years, and I have enjoyed my time. I've enjoyed the opportunities it's provided. I've enjoyed the lifestyle it's provided. I've enjoyed the fact that the game of golf through the PGA Tour has been able to give me and my family so much. I'm appreciative of that fact. And during that time, I've worked really hard behind the scenes as well as on the scenes to try to contribute as a way of showing my appreciation. And I've done the best I can to give back to it as well. So I feel good about that. I feel good about the efforts I put in to try to give back to the game of golf as well as the tour. And I'm excited about the opportunity that Live Golf presents for me and the game of golf going forward.
Live Golf reference, there it is. How many times, I should have done a counter in the corner of how many times Phil Mickelson made sure to get Live Golf mentioned in this press conference. And that's important. Live Golf's paying him $200 million. He's a 52-year-old on the downside of his career. Yes, I know he won the PGA Championship last year. But he's got a lot more bad rounds left in him than he does good rounds at this point. Yes, is he capable of putting together a tournament here and there? Absolutely. By the way, he's going to get a lot less of those tournaments to play in now, which may be okay with him at 52 anyway, because he ain't going to be playing on the PGA Tour. But they're not paying him $200 million just to go out there and hit a white golf ball at these 8 events they have this year. They're paying him to evangelize. They're paying him to get up. They're paying him to get up on that podium and make Live Golf look as good as it possibly can, which, again, is why he's so coached on how to handle these pressers.
Like I said, I've done all I can to help contribute to the game, contribute to the PGA Tour during my time with them, and that's all I can do.
Question on the far right, Mark.
Phil, what are your plans playing-wise beyond after this week in terms of anything? Do you hope to do anything beyond the Live events and the Open Championship? And just as a follow, do you feel like...
Let's just
Okay.
stop there.
All right.
So I think it's been pretty public that I'm suspended along with a bunch of other players. So it would be only speculative going forward. I am going to play the Live events. I'm going to play the British Open. But anything other than that would be pure speculation. I don't know how this is all going to play out.
That, by the way, is his way of saying there's litigation coming. There's lawsuits coming. And he says a couple other things during this presser that allude to that.
Just as a quick follow to that, do you, if it's your preference, would you like to do both? I mean, obviously, the suspension notwithstanding at the moment, is that your preference going forward if that comes to pass?
My preference is to be able to choose which path I'd like, one or the other or both. I feel that, as I was saying to Ann, I gave as much back to the PGA Tour and the game of golf that I could throughout my 30 years here. And through my accomplishments on the course, I've earned a lifetime membership. I intend to keep that and then choose going forward which events to play and not.
Question on the left, right behind me.
Hey, Phil. The LIV Tour has obviously driven a big wedge through the golf world with people being pretty passionate on both sides. Was that kind of the point of starting this up? And have you had any dealings with guys like Rory and the guys who are more passionate on the other side of the debate?
The point of starting it up, I'll have to defer to those at LIV Golf. It was their idea, it was their brain trust or their thoughts and ideas that they brought to fruition. I certainly respect Rory. I thought it was what a great finish yesterday and a great accomplishment, and what a career he's had. I certainly respect him. I respect his ideas. I respect all the players that choose to stay on the PGA Tour. I certainly think extremely highly of many of the players on the PGA Tour and their right to their own decisions.
So
Two questions on the
Mickelson,
left.
is very deferential to McIlroy and the things he has said. And McIlroy today, at his press conference ahead of this week's U.S. Open, kind of expanded upon his own comments. McIlroy said, I understand, yes, because a lot of these guys are in their late 40s, McIlroy said. In Phil's case, early 50s. Yeah, I think everyone in this room would say to themselves that their best days are behind them. That's why I don't understand for the guys that are a similar age to me going, because I'd like to believe that my best days are still ahead of me, and I think theirs are too. So that's where it feels like you're taking the easy way out. McIlroy's 33. He's basically saying, yeah, I can understand Mickelson going for the payday. He's 52. How many more tournaments is he going to win? But Bryson DeChambeau going to play on this tour, getting the guaranteed money? Dustin Johnson? Pat Perez? And McIlroy's disappointed because a lot of those guys said they weren't going to play or hinted that they weren't going to play, and then they decided to go take some of that hundreds of millions of dollars that the Saudis put into it. Let's get one more here.
Steve,
Phil, what's with the facial hair, and is it here to stay?
that's two questions.
Amy liked it, so as long as she likes it, it's here. And when she says it's gone, it's gone.
Question, Bob?
Phil, your relationship with the USGA has been a bit tenuous at times, and just curious if you are concerned at all that they will take action in the future to make it harder for you and some of the other guys who are qualified to play in the U.S. Open, down the road.
I think that's a better question for the USGA, but I would say in regards to issues that I've had, I have had strong opinions and ideas, let's say, regarding most of the governing bodies, and I've done a poor job of conveying that. I've made it public, and that's been a mistake. That's one of the mistakes I've been making. And I'll try to, going forward, be a lot more thoughtful with my words and actions and try to keep a lot of those things behind closed doors.
Question right in the center.
Phil, you're not the first professional athlete to deal with Saudi Arabia. Motorsport, boxing, horse racing, Newcastle United in the Premier League. The US government even deals with Saudi Arabia. Do you feel the criticism of yourself and others has been maybe unfairly harsh?
I got to say, this is a very valid point. It was something I actually planned to bring up today, even before I heard that question asked yesterday. It's a very valid point that there is a lot of hypocrisy to go around when it comes to how we deal with Saudi Arabia. I mean, Joe Biden right now is, not to get political here, but Joe Biden right now is talking about reopening conversations and, kind of expanding the diplomatic relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia. And I know a lot of people say, well, they have, half the world's oil. You have to, kind of dance with the devil in that situation. But it is kind of hypocritical for people to just now be getting upset about, this relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, or these golfers in Saudi Arabia. You don't hear nearly this much condemnation of the NBA when it comes to their relationships with China and how they capitulate to the needs of the Chinese Communist government. It is a very fair question.
That's not necessarily for me to say. I think the important thing is that
sidestepping.
Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I understand that it brings out a lot of strong emotions for a lot of people, and I respect the way they may or may not feel about it.
So Mickelson, again, he's just trying to stay away from controversy. After what happened a couple of months ago, the Live Golf people basically said, all right, you're coming on board, we're going to coach you. Here's what you say, here's what you don't say. Stay away from this. Deflect, pivot. Move off of that question. I mean, this is this press conference yesterday was a PR 101 sort of masterclass. It would make for such a great case study in how to coach people to answer questions a certain way. Phil talked for 22 minutes yesterday, and he didn't say a damn thing. And that's exactly what the Saudis wanted. And the one thing I wish he would have said, and he almost kind of addressed it when he said he appreciates the amount of money that the Saudis are putting into the game of golf. No, he appreciates the amount of money the Saudis are putting in his pockets. That's what he appreciates. And that's the one thing Mickelson did not say in a press conference of a lot of nothing being said. We're coming back. We got more to do. Stay with us. All right, don't mind me on this Tuesday. I'm Jason Page. There was about 8 minutes more to that press conference, but I didn't want to use up the entire show talking about that. All right, coaches behaving badly. The Jack Del Rio edition. I'm sure everybody by now knows Jack Del Rio was very dismissive of the January 6th insurrection attempt at the Capitol. And he's paid a heavy price for his comments to the tune of $100,000, which, again, guy who's made enough money in his playing career and then in his post-playing career, he's done okay. But still, a real statement from the Redskins organization in finding Del Rio that much money. Now he's off Twitter, by the way. He's off Twitter because he basically equated the summer of unrest that took place. He equated it to the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, which there's been a lot of hearings on recently. For those that don't know, Del Rio said, people's livelihoods are being destroyed, businesses are being burned down, no problem. And then we have a dust-up at the Capitol. Nothing burned down, and we're going to make that a major deal? Several people died, by the way, as a result of that attack on the Capitol. Ron Rivera disavowed the comments, fined Del Rio $100,000, and they're donating that to the U.S. Capitol Police Memorial Fund. But why would you keep him? Why just fine him? He's already lost respect now from that organization. I'm shocked they decided to keep him on board. Very surprised. D.C. city council members closed the door on one proposal to build a new stadium for the Redskins as a result of the comments from Jack Del Rio. But these are the kinds of guys that are supposed to be leaders of men. And he's not the only one. It's kind of a story that went under the radar. But this is the sort of stuff, when you think of Lane Kiffin, former NFL head coach, former collegiate head coach, now Mississippi coach. What are you doing on Twitter taking jabs or swipes at people or other collegiate programs? Again, this is a leader of young men. What's the example you're setting for your players if you're Lane Kiffin? He took a little jab at Tennessee, had to take a jab at Tennessee baseball. And some kids today will be like, that's cool. Yeah, our coach going to bat for the school. And that's the response you would expect to get from kids, but not from your coach. Not from your football program coach. You know who doesn't make those kinds of comments? Really good head coaches. Guys that have won. Guys that win national championships. Guys that win Super Bowls. You know who isn't commenting on the January 6th hearings or the summer of unrest or the insurrection attempt at the Capitol? You know who's not talking about those things? Bill Belichick's not talking about those things. You know who doesn't talk about those things? Winners. Guys with self-control. Leaders of men. Those are the guys, they ain't talking about that stuff. They're not talking about the attack on the Capitol. And by the way, I don't even care if you want to say something stupid and you're Jack Del Rio. Why are you talking about it at all? Used to have a boss. Used to have a boss named Jack Silver. You say, stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. Jack Del Rio, stay in your lane. Lane Kiffin, get off Twitter. If your only purpose in using it is to take jabs at your former employer. Look, some coaches out there, Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, we had Stan Van Gundy on last week. Some of these guys like to use their platform to take a stand on certain social issues. And you better damn well win if you're going to do it. You know why Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr can do it? Because they win. Prolifically, they win. So even if you're a owner of an organization and you might lean more conservative, you can't get rid of Steve Kerr if you wanted to. Not that Joe Lacob's going to do that, or whoever owns the Spurs is going to do that with Pop. But you can't do that sort of thing if you're Lane Kiffin and you've never won a damn thing in your life. Or if you're Jack Del Rio. What have you done, Jack Del Rio, besides get fired as a head coach? Leaders of men. You know, it's funny. You know where you never hear these sorts of controversies? You don't hear women, you don't hear female coaches saying it. Yeah, I'm going to go there. I'll go there. Do you hear female coaches in the WNBA getting in trouble for this sort of thing? I mean, outside of Kim Mulkey, who's said a couple of brain-dead things, other than Kim Mulkey, can you give me a lot of female head coaches that say things that get them in hot water? Just saying. Just saying. One last thing before we go. This Serena Williams story, and we'll get into this tomorrow a little bit more on the show. I'm hoping to get a guest related to tennis to talk about this. Just before we came on to do the show today, the 7-time Wimbledon champion, Serena Williams, it was announced she's going to make her return to the grass courts of SW19 when of Wimbledon, when the tournament kicks off later this month after being handed a wild card entry. She's going to compete in the ladies singles. She's also hinted at the highly anticipated news. She said SW and SW19. It's a date, 2022. See you there. SW19 is the postcode district in southwest London, which is where Wimbledon is held. She hasn't played competitively since an injury forced her to retire at Wimbledon last year. Not retire, but retire in a first-round match that she was playing in. 23-time major winner. She's still trying to beat Margaret Court's record of 24. And here's the last thing I'll say on this, then we got to go. No best bet today. I won yesterday. I want to bask in that for a little bit. One last thought on this before we go. It's hard enough to win a major, but trying to do so as a wild card, I mean, look, we've seen some amazing things over the last several years. What Rafa Nadal has done just this year, winning the first 2 Grand Slam events, the incredible winning streak he had to start the season before getting hurt and losing in the final of the BNP Paribas out here in Palm Springs. Tiger Woods' amazing Masters win, completing a comeback for the ages. If Serena were to win this 24th major as a wild card at Wimbledon, I mean, it would have to go right there with those, because you are asking a heck of a lot to try and win this event in any year, but let alone as somebody trying to do it as a wild card. It'll be fun to watch, though. We'll talk about it some more tomorrow. We'll preview the Stanley Cup final tomorrow. That gets underway on Wednesday. Lightning looking for a 3rd straight Stanley Cup. Who knows what else? I'm Jason Page. Don't mind me. Make sure to subscribe and like us. Like this video. Click the subscribe button. You'll get a reminder every day when we do the show live. Make sure to check out the podcast version of the show, courtesy of our friends at Believe. Anything else? I think we're good. That's a wrap. We'll catch you back here on... we'll catch you back here on Wednesday. Till then, see ya.